Alright, hello everyone, my name is Shep, welcome back to the Butcher's Circus, and welcome to today's video where I'm going to be explaining how to create your own Butcher's Circus team. So we have already a few teams here for you as example, but I'm gonna teach you how to create your own. So out of the pool of 18 characters, how do you build your own teams? How do you know if your team is good before you actually play it? How do you know what you're playing against? How do you know what your win condition is? And basically I'm gonna go through a theory which I pretty much, it's just like a rock, paper, scissors theory, and to actually explain it a little bit better, I made a little bit of a graph here. So you have a rock, paper, scissors, which is damaged, DOT, and stress. So the damaged teams will beat the DOT teams, the DOT teams will beat the stress teams, and the stress teams will beat the damaged teams. Now, of course, this is a massive oversimplification of all the teams that exist in the Butcher Circus, because there are teams that are kind of like hybrids, there are damage teams that are still really good against stress, there are stress teams that are not that good against damage but deal with DOT quite easily. But overall, you should kind of look at this and just see how this is going to help you build your teams. So this graph is kind of difficult to understand at first, but basically I have put all the characters, all 18 of them are here, closer to where their preferred role is. So for example, Leper is mostly damage. He's not quite like at the damage because you can kind of play him stress and DOT, but if you want to play him to the best of his abilities, you should put him close to damage. Now, before I go on with explaining all this, I will actually go to a different thing and have a tier list on it as well, which is going to help us understand how to make the best teams even better, right? With the tier list helping us out. So I will start with the Flatron because he's kind of in a weird position. He's right smack down in the middle of this rock paper scissors thing, and the reason he's there is because he kind of fits everywhere. So he's like the water of the Butcher Circus. He's like indispensable to pretty much any team. You can put him in any single team you want to. So you can make a damage team and just put a Flatron on there, it's probably gonna work. You can make a stress team, put a Flatron on there, it's probably gonna work. And you can make a DOT team and put a Flatron on there, it's probably gonna work. So I'm actually gonna start with the DOT teams. How do you actually build a good one? Because this is gonna be the easiest one to explain. So you can see that in terms of how the graph looks like overall, there's a big cluster this way, and there's like practically nothing here. And the reason that is because DOT is kind of a weird win condition, because how do DOT teams work? Well, they win through getting kills, and to get kills you need to, with the DOT team, apply bleeds and bites on the enemy characters, bring them down to their store, and then kill them. Which basically means that you need characters which are very good at their DOT role, which there really aren't many. I put the Shield Breaker over here, very close to the DOT, but also a little bit closer to damage because she can fit into some damage teams, but she's basically going to do a lot of blight, she's going to be very difficult to take down, and she's a great character for the DOT team, so you're pretty much always going to pick a Shield Breaker if you want to play that. The Jester is smack down in the middle between damage and DOT, but also a little bit close to stress because you can play stress Leper, though you should kind of stay away from it if you're a beginner. But you can play in the damage team, you can play him in the DOT team because he gives you battle wild for early characters, which is quite important because if you want to bring enemy characters down to 0 HP by hitting them, you probably have to hit them first. So you should consider that any team kind of needs accuracy buffs, pretty much every single team. So having a Jester in your teams is always going to be a good thing. That's why he's A tier. He's good for damage because he gives some battle ballad, has finale pressure, and he's also good for DOT because he also gives some battle ballad, has a lot of DOT, and can also get kills. And he's also quite difficult for the sound because of his dodge. So what other characters does DOT have? Well, they have Antiquarian, which I put down here because she really doesn't fit into damage. She kind of fits into stress, she fits there relatively well, but there's other characters that are a little bit better for that. But she fits quite well into DOT because you can put Trinket, which is called Materia Pestis, on her, even though that's the last prestige trinket, so you're probably not going to get it for a very long time. And she's gonna do a lot of damage with her DOT. I am capturing the monster, yes, just making sure. So yeah, sorry that everything's in Portuguese, but you know, I am Portuguese, so the computer's just set up that way. So basically, you are limited to these 3 characters if you want to build a DOT team. They're pretty much the only characters that are near here. The other characters you could use are the Plague Doctor, but you can see she's B-, so if you want to make a good team, you really want to stay away from the Hellion, because she's C tier, she sucks. If you want to build a great team, you also want to stay away from the Plague Doctor most likely, because she's very vulnerable, she doesn't have very many good matchups, she's B-, just stay away from her. Stay away from these two characters as much as possible, try to incorporate as many of the A tier characters and S tier, and the least amount of B+ tier characters as possible. This is just to help you build the greatest possible team. So in DOT, you're gonna have these three, and then what are you gonna bring? Well, most of the time it's just a Flagellant. Other things you could bring would, for example, be like a Grave Robber, because she also works in DOT. You can see that she's kind of far away from the stress and damage, so she can work in DOT. So you could just place her there, and then you have these 4 characters, but then they would be quite squishy, so you almost always want a Flagellant in the damage over time teams. Could also put a Doggy on there, but he's not very close to the DOT, so you probably shouldn't do that. This is just based off my knowledge playing the Butcher Circus, so you shouldn't take this as empirically correct, but you should take this as mostly correct when it comes to my experience. So you're probably better off playing the Doggy in the stress role, not in the damage role, not in the DOT role. So onto the actual stress teams. The pure stress character is the Man-at-Arms. He can also be played with damage, and also a little bit played with DOT, that's why he's not like here. You can put a shield spike on him, make him kind of like a retribution tank, just make him riposte, but he's the paramount of stress teams, absolutely. He's going to be A tier, he has Bellows, he has Bolsters, he has Defender, he also has command, so he can give the stress teams accuracy. This is why the stress chester isn't too popular, because you already have command to give yourself accuracy if you really want it. So Man-at-Arms, you should pretty much always take him in your stress team. So what you can also take in the stress teams is a Flagellant. So you can take Flagellant, Man-at-Arms, of course, always bring the Flagellant if you can. And other characters you can bring up, for example, the Abomination, because he can kind of do everything. You can put him in the DOT team as well, I kind of forgot to mention that. But yeah, you can bring the Abomination because he's kind of like the Flagellant, he kind of fits this universal role, a bit more focused towards the damage and stress side of things, but he can also play DOT. But if you want to bring him in the stress team, it's going to be quite good. You bring these 3 characters, so you're going to have a good time, and then you can kind of just pick from any of these 4 characters. They all fit into stress teams. You can pick the Crusader, they all fit into stress teams, but keep in mind, if you bring Crusader, Abomination, Flagellant, Man-at-Arms, you're kind of going to be you're going to be feel like a bit clunky in terms of positions. Everything's going to be a little bit closed in for you, because, you know, they kind of all want to be in the front line apart from the Man-at-Arms, so definitely do watch out for how you want to do that. You can even bring these 2 characters, or even a Vessel, though I really wouldn't recommend a Vessel. She's very far away from the stress, so the more far away you are from the stress, you're probably the least amount of chance that you should bring that character, but Crusader works just fine still. Yeah, Crusader does still work. So the stress teams are going to be essentially that. Of course, you can pick just like a Cultist, Highwayman, Grave Robber, Houndmaster if you want to, but then you're not going to have accuracy buffs. All of them are going to be very squishy, so try to not pick 4 B+ characters, because yes, they're going to be quite aggressive, but there are going to be some situations where you're suffering against riposte, you have pretty much just 1 healer, you have no accuracy buffs, the team's just not going to hold on for very long. So definitely keep your A characters in your teams as much as possible. So you can also technically bring an Antiquarian if you want to. So this is just something that you can explore. You can kind of like just screenshot this image and go up to the 18 characters and think like, okay, I'm gonna build a stress team now. I saw that, you know what, I'm gonna go kind of crazy. I see that the Musketeer here is kind of close to the stress bar. She's definitely on the stress side of things, not just full damage. So I'm gonna bring Musketeer, Crusader, I'm gonna bring them both with stress moves. I'm gonna bring Man-at-Arms because Shep said it was good, and I'm gonna bring an Abomination instead. And what you will have is basically a very tanky front line with the Man-at-Arms, which is gonna give you a lot of tankiness as well, but you're gonna have a lot of stress output here, and the Musketeer is probably gonna be your support, so you probably won't need to drop commands with this character. She's gonna go ranging shots. It's gonna be very good against other stress teams, and also good against damage teams, because you'll have Bulwark, you'll have Slams, you'll have Bellows. So overall, that would be a very, very nice team if you put these 4 characters together. So you can kind of just come here and do that if you want to. So you feel a little bit less clueless when making your own teams. So about how stress actually wins matches, because I kind of forgot to mention that, is that obviously for stress its win condition is damage. No, not damage, it's stress. So just pure stress is what you want to do. Of course, you can go about it in many different ways. You can go about doing stress as quickly as possible, or you can take like more of a balanced approach, have defense and stress at the same time, or you can take like a really slow approach and basically focus your team on just building full defense and very, very slowly outputting stress. All three of those ideas work. I would recommend the balanced approach. It's probably what's gonna work better against most teams, but you can play it however much you want. Make sure that you have healing characters, make sure that you have characters that can guard or that can dodge or even, and make sure that you have some kind of like position safety. For example, the Abomination doesn't really like being disrupted, the Flash one doesn't really like being disrupted. What you can do here is, for example, you put the Grave Robber in position 4, and the Abomination position 3. If your position 4 gets pulled, she just goes Shadow Fade and the Abomination is now in a good place. So there's kind of like duos here that you need to think of and consider when you're building teams like this. So going over onto the damage teams, once again you can play the Flash one, so you can put them in you can put the Flash one in there because he's gonna have DOT. So if you build a damage team with a Flash one, it's gonna be a little bit of a hybrid, because the idea behind damage teams is to get kills. So you want to get kills as quickly as possible. DOT teams can kind of wait until round 3, until every single character drops a death star, and then they really snowball. But the damage teams want to get a kill as quickly as possible, like 99% of the time. So if you bring that, you are probably going to want the character that deals the most damage, bring the character down to 0 HP immediately, right? So that's why the Arvels is S tier. She just one-shots enemy characters after the Bounty Hunter marks them, and they are just a great combo, because to get kills, you need to get very good death blow chances. Bounty Hunter is the best finisher in the game, so you bring the Bounty Hunter, you mark the enemy characters, the Arvels shoots them, puts them down to 0, or even the Musketeer, and then they just die to the next round to the Bounty Hunter. So that's kind of the idea behind it. Well, then why don't you get 4 kills in 4 rounds or something like that? Well, that's because the opponent's son is going to have heals. They're going to try to prevent you from getting your kills as quickly as possible. So how do you actually get kills when your opponent has guards, when your opponent has heals, when your opponent has dodge? Well, you're going to need accuracy, so you can bring a Dresser with that. You're going to need stuns, so you can stun the people defending, so you can stun the people healing, so you can stun the character from healing themselves while also doing a little bit of damage. You can bring Guard Break if you want to, so you can have a Shield Breaker in your damage team. You can bring an Abomination to transform and slam, and Guard Break as well, so you can deal with those pesky guards, because you'll notice that when you're playing the damage teams, if you go against like Houndmaster Man-at-Arms on the stress side, then you'll really feel the rock, paper, scissors if you don't have a way of dealing with it, because they're just going to guard their characters and you're not going to have a way of breaking through. So you need to find a way of breaking through, and that's what you have to consider when you're building these teams. So the Leper is definitely here, way up here in terms of damage. He's only going to be played with damage, and why is he B+? If he can get one-shots and the Arvels is S. Well, the Arvels has support for the other characters. She isn't as position dependent. Like if the Arvels gets disrupted, she can bowl, she can move back twice. If the Leper gets disrupted, he's screwed. He has to move back forward to just one position at a time, and even then it's not going to be very good for you. She can heal other characters, she can clear dazes, stuns, debuffs, stealth. She can do just about anything, while the Leper just doesn't feel too good. And she has a lot of accuracy, the Leper is totally inaccurate, so they can both be played in damage teams, but if you're just starting off, you're better off picking an Arbalest as your main damage dealer than you're better off picking a Leper. Though he's still quite good, obviously. So yeah, that's kind of the crutch of it, how you want to do this. So right now I'm gonna show you some teams that work, for example. So let's try to build a damage team here together. So I'm not gonna pick the Flange one immediately, even though I could, but let's just try to build a damage team. So I'm gonna bring Arbalest and Bounty Hunter because they're the best characters. I'm gonna bring both of them, and then you already have one heal. You kind of want another, right? You bring the Crusader, and then you have already one stun character as well. So if you wanna bring another stun character, you can bring the Vessel if you want to, you can bring the Abomination if you want to. So if you bring the Vessel, that would be called Silex Special. If you bring the Abomination, that would be called the WD comp, so that would be World Domination. If you bring the Musketeer, this would kind of just be like, I can't remember the name, but this is like a beginner's noob team. Like a noob mark team, essentially, having these 4 characters together. I really don't like it too much because And having Musketeer and Arbals is kind of a gamble, because if there's disruption, like if there's an enemy abomination, they just slam your position too. These two characters are forever having a horrible time, so I really wouldn't do that, but you can do that. You can bring a Leper, so if you want to try making a Leper team, you can bring Leper and Arbals if you want to, so you can bring both of them. And then let's say you want accuracy, because Leper has your accuracy, you bring a Jester, and since you only have one healer, you want to bring another healer, so you bring Crusader, Leper, and Arbalest Jester. That would be called the Goliath comp, so you can do all these quirky little combos. You can also bring, if you don't want to have stuns, but you want to have even more kill shots, even more death blow chances with a Bounty Hunter, and if you want to make sure that you deal like crazy amounts of damage by having both a Mark Shooter and the Leper, you can bring, for example, Bounty Hunter, Arbalest, and then just Leper and Jester, and then you have what would be, I don't think this team actually has a name, but it's one of the very aggressive teams. So if you want to bring a damage team with a Flagellant, you can just bring Flagellant, so he's going to be potentially a healer with Reclaim, so you already have that going for you. And you kind of have to be careful pairing Flagellant with Abomination damage teams, because they don't really like getting disrupted too much, but I would most likely just pair him with a Crusader instead, so you can bring Flagellant Crusader as a front line, then you can just bring these two, and that would be called the hit squad. You can always replace the Arbals with a Musketeer, by the way. They're very similar characters, except the Musketeer is most of the time just worse. Her flare gives accuracy and minus stress taken for all characters, also heals a little bit of stress, but overall having the Arbalest flare is going to be much more valuable, and the Arbalest also has prot. The Arbalest has more bleed resistance, the Arbalest cures bleed naturally with her heals, while the Musketeer needs a trinket to cure blights. Overall, you're better off having an Arbalest over that. So I think we've really kind of gone over the damage teams quite enough. Oh, if you want to bring Guard Break, and if you don't want to have either of these two characters, you can just bring, for example, Bounty Hunter Arbalest. Then you can bring a Shield Breaker as your Guard Breaker, and then if you want to go really aggressive, you can go Jester, or if you want to be more defensive, you can go Flagellant, and then you'll have Reclaim, right? So you bring these four characters. I think that's called the Double Squad, so you can do a lot of good things with that. You can also build damage teams, for example, with the characters down here. So you can always just go for a lunge team if you want to. Definitely don't think that you can't play these characters as damage, because you can. Like, they're not fully on the stress bar that can be played as damage, but I'm just telling you most of the meta comps. But let's go to something a little bit less meta. So you can just play with a Grave Robber, just make her go lunge. You can use the Plague Doctor to use Emboldening Vapors on your Leper, for example. You know, it's definitely not going to be the greatest of strategy every single game, but if it does work, it feels pretty good. You can bring Mark Houndmaster, just try to Hound Rush with him, but keep in mind that he doesn't have as much support for the rest of his team. And speaking of the Houndmaster, we have Bianca, but yeah, he doesn't have as much support for the rest of his team, but he can still get some good blows in. But Hound Rush won't give you the nice trinkets that the Arbalest has, won't give you that base 110 accuracy, so there's a reason that he's B+, and there's a reason that he's closer to the stress bar than the damage bar. The Highwayman can also be played in the damage team. You can have Repulse, you can have those very nice Wicked Slice crits. They might crit for 30 even, that's going to be a very nice damage source over there. Also kind of a support finisher character, so to get kills you won't really need just the Jester and the Bounty Hunter to get the kills. You can put a finisher trinket on the Highwayman, then he's going to be a pretty good finisher. Same thing with the Grave Robber, so don't be scared of trying these characters out. You can even play Mark Occultist, as long as they're not like a Man-at-Arms, or they're not like an Antiquarian, or, you know, even they definitely don't play the Hellion, but you can play almost every character in the damage team. Just make sure they have some way of dealing with cards, some way of dealing with heals, some way of having a lot of attacking actions on the same character, some way of bringing them down to 0 quickly, and also getting very good death blow chances on them, as well as staying alive for as long as possible with a couple heals, right? Because that's one of the big reasons that damage teams excels, because they usually have quick kills, they're going to get a character advantage, and they're going to have stuns, and they're going to have heals, so they're just going to completely overwhelm the opposition. So Vessel's also very good for that, she has the biggest heals. So on to stress teams. Let's build a stress team now. Have we built stress teams yet? Yeah, I was going to do a bit less of a meta stress team. Oh yeah, I was going to show you the meta stress teams now. That's right, I've already showed you the meta damage team, so let's show you the meta stress. So Meta stress teams would probably be something like Shep Stress, so you bring Flagellant, Man-at-Arms, and then you bring Abomination and Doggy. So this just works quite well. You have a Flagellant in there, you have a Man-at-Arms that is defensive, the Abomination is going to do a lot of horror. The Man-at-Arms can give you accuracy for your Doggy to go hounds Harry, and overall it's just going to be a very, very solid stress team. You can, instead of having the Doggy, you can bring a Grave Robber. That would be Chef Stress number 3. Though I didn't make the team, I just made Chef Stress number 1. Chef Stress number 2, 3, and 4 are basically just an easier way for me to identify them, but I definitely didn't build all those characters there. I don't really like playing with Grave Robber all that much in the stress teams, but she's definitely good at it. She can be played in damage, stress, and DOT, kind of, though you should stay away from it. She's mostly played in stress because Panic Dart is just such a nice ability, so that's why you'd want to bring her. But yeah, you can put her in this kind of setup. The setup between Man-at-Arms is always going to be in the stress teams. Like every single meta stress team has Man-at-Arms, so you can bring him in there. Abomination is amazing for the stress teams. Flagellant is amazing for the stress teams. So you can kind of just put this 3 characters together with Flagellant in first, Man-at-Arms in second, Abomination in third, and then in your 4th position character you can put an Antiquarian as well. She also works in the stress team. She also has that take cover ability, so if your Abomination is in position 4, she can go take cover and the Abomination can play again. You can bring a Occultist, which doesn't have that ability but has a lot of stress output with the Abyssal Artillery, has the Demon's Pull, so you're going to have disruption with pushes and you're going to have disruption with pulls on your stress teams, so you're really going to make things difficult for the damage teams and the DOT teams to just kill your characters. And if they take like more than a few rounds to kill one of your characters, the stress teams are just going to snowball immensely because you're going to get afflictions, and after afflictions or your stress teams, you're going to have a really fun time. You can also bring a Higher Man in your stress teams, though with these 3 characters it's going to be a little bit more complicated because then Man-at-Arms going to have to be in 4th position. If the Man-at-Arms gets pulled, then it's going to be a little bit rough, so I'd usually play either the Higher Man or the Abomination. They're both solid characters. I would typically advise you to play Abomination over Higher Man in the stress teams, though I typically advise you to play most characters over Higher Man in stress and damage teams. Like, there's a reason he's B+, he's quite strong, but he's difficult to play with. He has a lot of weaknesses like his lack of accuracy. He's a good character, but he's difficult. So yeah, in terms of stress teams, you'd have Shep Stress. If you want to bring a Crusader, which is obviously a fine play because you have Bulwark of Light, you can give all your characters protection, and you have Zealous Accusation, which is just an awesome ability, does a ton of damage, does a ton of stress. You can play Crusader, Abomination, Man-at-Arms, Doggy, or Crusader, Abomination, Man-at-Arms, and Antiquarian. The first one with the Doggy is called the Zeta Stress Comp, so it has a lot of protection. It's basically what is the best team at dealing with Arbalest and the Bounty Hunter. It's gonna have a worse time if it has a Crusader on there, but it's not the end of the world. You can slam the Flagellant. You can slam the Flagellant, you can Zealous Accusation the Flagellant down, so Flagellant is a very difficult character. You have to build every single team around him because you have to realize that you're probably going to face a Flagellant, and he has Conduit of Absolution, which is a broken trinket, and he has broken abilities, so you need to make sure that all your teams can kind of deal with him. That's something that Stress sometimes has a rough time against, because Conduit of Absolution is really there to counter the Stress teams. But yeah, this would be the Zeta Stress Comp, these 4 characters. If you want to bring it with the Antiquarian, I think that's like one of the most basic stress teams. I can't remember its name. I don't think it really has a name. If you want to bring, for example, these 2 AoE backliners, so you have like a Surf and Turf going on of Hound, Zeri, and Festering Vapors, you're going to be very weak to riposte, but you can just apply Battle Debuffs and just try to remove that damage quite a bit. Then you can put an Abomination on there, and you're going to have like absolutely insane amounts of stress output. So that would be called the Old Gold from my brother, 135 J-Man. Quite a solid team. Gonna have a rough time against Flagellants, but you know, that's just the truths of the Butcher Circus. Maybe you can ban him if you're playing with friends or something, and then you can make a few more teams work, right? So yeah, that's kind of how the stress teams go. I will talk about the Helen a little bit. Like, I don't want to be this mean to her. The reason she's over here, like, she looks like she's very close to the Flagellant. Like, maybe she fills the same role. Well, she kind of does. You can play her in stress teams, you can play her in DOT teams. Like, you can... In stress teams, she just spams Yop, which is a decent debuff. In DOT teams, she just spams Breakthrough with Hemlock, so she does, like, a nice amount of DOT to all the enemy characters. And in damage teams, you try to go for a bleed out crit round 1, just try to do a lot of damage with her. The reason she's still C tier is because when she gets disrupted in the stress team, she's much worse than the Crusader. Crusader also sucks when he's disrupted in stress, but she sucks even more In DOT teams, she's good with that breakthrough, but she has no freaking accuracy and she dazes herself with breakthrough, so that's absolutely horrible. You want to stay away from dazes as much as possible. And she sucks in the damage teams because she also only has 80 accuracy on that bleed out, and if you don't get the crit, then you're not doing enough damage and then you daze yourself as well. So it's just atrocious. And she's way more position dependent to get death blows than the Bounty Hunter is. Bounty Hunter, best character at death blowing, second best character the Jester. So yeah, don't play her that way. So that is all the characters. That is all the characters really talked about and explained. And once again, I do recommend you watch my video. That is the 6 tips for the Butcher Circus, kind of like a beginner's guide. And this is just kind of evolving on that, going over that win condition thing and just showing it to you how it works a little bit better with the damage, the DOT, and the stress. Of course, there's teams you can build. For example, let's see. You can build a damage team that has Arbalist, Bounty Hunter, Jester, and Crusader, and what that's basically going to do is you can play it as kind of like a DOT team as well. You can put Caltrips and Harvest, and you can kind of wait a little bit and then just get 2 kills in a row. You can do that if you want to, so it's going to be kind of a mix and match between damage and DOT. There's just a ton of things you can do. Of course, if you're kind of a beginner, you're not going to have all the trinkets to make these teams work as best as possible, but in that case, just keep grinding, keep trying new things out. There's a lot of teams that can be played even with less than perfect trinkets. And there's still lots of ways of dealing with the flashpoint, even with less than perfect trinkets. One of them being the finale, right? You just don't care too much about that content of absolution. So yeah, definitely hope you enjoyed this video. I will maybe make more guides in the future, I'm not entirely sure. It's just that a lot of these things I just talk over in my videos, and as I'm explaining teams, I kind of just explain what its goals are, what it wants to do. So definitely watch my videos if you want to get a feel for all those good teams. And in my channel, I have kind of a new thing. I've started doing it like earlier in 2022, kind of like in the middle of 2022. I just started making playlists of all the teams that I've played. So if there's a team that was played in a video, it's in that playlist. For example, the Halo comp, the WD that I mentioned earlier, the Hit Squad. You can just go onto the playlist, see like 5 different videos of that team being played, and then you can look at the team, you can look at the trinkets, the abilities, you can see how it's played, you can try to copy it as best as possible, and then just kind of, instead of just slowly learning things on yourself, you can kind of just take like this huge jump to probably one of the best teams and one of the best playstyles and some of the best trinkets, and then just kind of equalize your situation against all the darkest opponents. Kind of surprise yourself with how strong some of the things you can build. So yeah, hope you all enjoyed today's video, and I'll see you again another time. Cheers.